much pressure has the NBA put on the NFL to now act?
I think it's put immense pressure on the NFL, but it hasn't put immense pressure on the NFL players. It's put immense pressure on the NFL commissioner and the NFL owners. And the reason why I say that is because of the spectacular fashion in which I believe the NBA has handled this entire situation with its players. You know, Black Lives Matter sprayed on the court. The social justice issues that the players themselves have tackled and how conspicuous they have been and outspoken they have been in doing so. The money dedicated to it, even though the NFL has done something along those lines, I think their numbers are at about $250 million in terms of contributing to social justice issues. But where it really, really kicks in is the players and the voices that NBA players have. See, they're not wearing helmets and shoulder pads, so you identify with the players on a basketball court easier than you identify with football players. So if the football players are going to come together and speak out, unless it's the elite guys, particularly the white guys, it's important for Tom Brady to say something, and Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, people like that to say something. It can't just be Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or Cam Newton. It would be nice for Dak Prescott to say something, even though I know that he's trying to get some individual off death row in Oklahoma. Julio Jones, I believe the guy's name is, and props to Dak Prescott for doing that. But it's important that the black and white players in the NFL speak up, but even more importantly, that they receive the overt, the conspicuous support of the owners. That's what's pivotal here, and that's where the NFL is under the gun. Because when we've heard the NFL speak on issues like this, it was really about Kaepernick, and what we really heard was that we are going to lose money. He may compromise our locker room and stuff like that. And then later a report came out that they had speculated that they would lose about 20% of the gate if in the event that their team signed Kaepernick. Yeah, those issues are things that we heard about emanating from NFL owners. And of course, Mr. Conspicuous himself, Jerry Jones, who up until the George Floyd killing you could see everywhere. But then once George Floyd passed away and these protests took place, you put an APB out for Jerry Jones because you couldn't find him. Now, the season's about to begin. And where are the NFL owners going to be on this? And guess what? They don't have to protest. They don't have to say much. The question is, will they stand down and leave these players alone to do what the players feel is right? That's where the pressure really, really will mount, because it's not enough to sit up there and not say anything. You better not be behind closed doors like Jerry Jones has intimated, thinking you're going to manipulate how the players act. He needs to just step away and stand down and let whatever's going to be, so these players can sit up there and handle their business in the appropriate fashion, because that's what the NBA has done. If the NFL does otherwise, they will pay a price for it.
I think this puts enormous pressure on NFL players. And the reason I think it does is because they have to be noticing. They have to see, as we all can, the amount of attention the NBA players were able to generate, the amount of focus on this issue they were able to generate. And it's impossible to talk about any of this stuff without context. This is all happening against the backdrop of two things. One, a pandemic. So things are not normal for people, right? And they're looking for sports to escape to get back to normal. And two, an election year. It must be on people's minds. That's why LeBron says more than a vote, right? But the emphasis is on voting, that you can make changes right now. So those two external factors are the context for everything that's going on. And the NBA's ability to generate attention and focus on this issue can't escape the notice of NFL players. NFL players have even more power collectively. Not like the NBA in the sense that they're each not stars like NBA players. There's so many on a team. Their careers are shorter. They wear helmets, et cetera. It's all the usual arguments. Why are NBA players apparently out of proportion in terms of their celebrity compared to many NFL players when the NFL is an even more popular league in this country? Well, that's the reason. So each individual NBA player may have more celebrity, but together, collectively, the NFL, as I said yesterday, cuts across every single demographic in this country. And especially when you look at high leverage moments where NFL players, if there's another incident, could say, oh, well, wait a minute, we're not playing today. When would that be, maybe? In the fall? You know, there were, as Nate Silver of 538 reported, there were over, I think, 1,100 COVID deaths yesterday. And he was warning about the idea that when people feel like, oh, the numbers are going down, they get relaxed, then the numbers go back up again. And that's going to coincide with the cold weather and flu season in the absence of a vaccination. So right as the pandemic could be raging again, or could hit new heights or lows, really is a better way to describe it in terms of people's suffering, as an election is approaching, at that moment, if there's an incident and NFL players realize, look what the NBA just did, look what we can do, yes, that what the NBA did exerts pressure on NFL. Stephen A., I know I get your larger point, but I believe also on the players, who many of whom obviously feel this very personally.
Well, I only agree with Stephen A. on this point because I think the pressure should be on the owners to either get out of the way, as Stephen A. said, or leverage relationships to make sure that legislation is passed and talked about and on the floor. Like I said yesterday on NFL Live, they lobby for everything else. So the pressure to me mounts on the NFL brass because the NBA, for all intents and purposes and the things that I've watched, their owners, the owners of those teams, got out of the way, and these players did whatever they wanted to do on their own accord. I want to remind people, 4 years ago, this started with a football player.